Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So that Andrew Race can join us as soon as he walks in the door. So we have, I mean, he was, I think Colleen.
Yeah, he indicated about 5 minutes ago he was 2 minutes out, so
Yeah, so.
he should be here momentarily.
He should be walking in the door any minute now. So we can just do the preliminary things. What we do is listen to the appeal. We may ask questions as we go. And when we're done, that is when we make our decision and get back to you. So I thought perhaps Dave would be so kind as to explain the HUP test that they have to meet.
Yeah, I can certainly attempt to do so. Was any of that communicated to you so far? Are you familiar with what we're talking about here? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so, and I'll just summarize then just briefly. I mean, overall, the determination is made is whether a county, whether property qualifies to be exempt from paying property taxes because it satisfies, I'll say simply, a nonprofit charitable purpose. And in general, there's kind of a set of criteria that goes into that, which obviously we lay forth in a form there that really comes from a state court case that's been interpreted and kind of set forth those parameters. So there's a series of, like, I'll say specific things as far as a nonprofit registration, a 501c3, things like that. And then I'll summarize as the general question overall is, does it relieve the government of a burden? Meaning like something that the government is already obligated or in some way providing a service to the public and the community. So that is, I think, the ultimate question that we kind of get to here with your specific organization is how do we determine what burden, if any, it's relieving the government of, and not just engaging in some other form of a business enterprise organization just in the name of a nonprofit. So in short version, I think that's kind of the point we ultimately get to with your organization.
And again, if you want to just perhaps tell us about the Cornwall Children's Center, and that way everyone is aware of what you do and how long you've been in business and all that sort of thing.
So we are a 501c3 nonprofit child care facility. We do follow the Department of Human Services guidelines. All of our teachers are receive annual training to follow the creative curriculum, ensuring that they're providing developmentally appropriate activities on a daily basis, helping to develop the learning of the children that are in our care. We provide care for 6 weeks through the end of 5th grade. We do also have children in our care daily that attend South Lebanon and Cornwall Elementary. They are picked up at our location. What else should I say?
Is that primarily like before and after school?
It
care?
is.
Okay.
We do have kindergarten kiddos as well, so they are there for a half of the day.
Andrew Race is joining us. Thank you, Andrew.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Please excuse my lateness and my lack of jacket. My 1-year-old spit up on it, and it's been that kind of a day.
So noted.
Well, what we've done so far is introductions, and I think you know everyone, so we thought that was safe. And we had Dave review what the HUP test is, and now we are hearing about the history of the Cornwall Children's Center.
Okay, perfect.
That way you're up to date.
Okay, thank you.
Would you like to start, or do you want them to continue?
Can I jump in?
Please.
Okay. And so why we're here, just by way of brief background, is the Cornwall Children's Center is a nonprofit daycare facility. And it's been a nonprofit going all the way back to 1982. They recently purchased property in the Cornwall Lebanon School District and are continuing to provide daycare and after-school care. And they're also providing after-school care because the SAC programs are full. But in addition, Cornwall Children's Center provides care for low-income families. So low-income families who qualify for assistance get a lower price through the Cornwall Children's Center. Emily will testify in a little more detail about that. And I do have a number of exhibits I want to share with the commissioners But perhaps the most important thing is the statute 10 PS section 375 regarding purely public charities. And there's a presumption that the Children's Center is a purely public charity that is rebuttable by a challenger. So the burden shifts away from the Children's Center and to any challenger to say that they are not exempt from taxation. And that's because we have a current valid sales tax exemption, which I will provide the certificate to the commissioners in a moment, and less than $10 million in revenue. As a result, as a matter of law, the Children's Center is entitled to a rebuttable presumption that it meets the 5 criteria. So for that, if I may present that to the commissioners, I believe that would shift the burden to any challenger here today. So if I may provide that to the commissioners. And with that, I have a letter from the IRS indicating the 501c3 status. I have the Form 990 for year 2020 showing program service revenue, prior year $485,000, current year $530,000. So as a result, well under the $10 million threshold. Then I next have the certificate of sales tax exemption, which does not expire until April 30th of 2026.
And
So-
isn't there an annual charitable organization certificate as well that you would need?
Not under this statute, Joellen. We do have that if you'd like us to supplement it after today, but that's not required under this statute. And in fact, what was provided by the tax assessor's office confirms that the exemption presumption, which is number 6, is under 10 million in program revenue, and then entitled to assert a presumption that you meet the 5-point test where you have a valid tax exemption from the PA sales tax, which is what I've just provided to you. So those two things are all we need to provide to create a rebuttable presumption that we're exempt from real estate property tax.
Dave, would you like to address this?
Were you able to identify any case law that makes a determination as to a nonprofit children's center gaining, children's center, daycare center, anything of the sort, gaining tax exempt status?
I was not. I was not able to find any appellate case law on that subject. I know there's a concern about widespread usage for child care facilities, but let's keep in mind, this is not a chain facility. This is not UGRO that has 20 locations throughout the Commonwealth. That's a for-profit center. This is a small nonprofit facility. And that's where the rub lies. This is not something that's going to spread like wildfire through the county. This is a unique circumstance relegated to nonprofit entities.
Could you give some more information about the discounted fees or services that are provided? Like any specific measurements and numbers on the percentage of people who receive that or what the discounted rate is?
Yes, so,
Go ahead.
let me go. Okay. So we provide services for low-income families. If a low-income family qualifies through, it's called Child Care Works, they can receive funding. We work with Child Care Works. Essentially, we could have 100% of our kiddos receiving Child Care Works if there was a need for it, if we had that many families. Currently, we are at about 29% of our enrollment does receive government funding. Well, like I said, when we have spaces available, we would take any children who qualified for Child Care Works. Often get calls from Child Care Works asking if we have more spaces available. So as soon as we have spaces, we are more than willing to take those children on.
Could you give us a little more information? How does the funding work through Child Care Works?
Can you explain that?
Please identify yourself just so that.
I am Barb Shars, the business manager. And how that happens is we encourage parents that come to us that need childcare but can't afford childcare. And we give them the information, who to contact, they go through them, and the child care program lets the parents know what their copay is, what they feel on their criteria of what they have. We have some that have zero copay. We have some that might have a $40 copay. That is the parent's responsibility. The rest is supplemented. We also offer sibling discounts. And because we are a nonprofit, we go out of the box and we give a lot of extreme discounts to families that if mom or dad are in the hospital, have an operation, or lost their job, especially through COVID. We also, on top of that, have a mission to help families of the community. And we have often over the years given either free childcare, reduced childcare, whether it's for a week, whether it's for a month, whether it's long-term. We have some that jobs changed or life situations have changed and couldn't pay for it, and we're going to pull their children, and rather than us see children being pulled, we will work one-on-one with parents so that those children stay in childcare.
Can you tell me, I'm sorry, I just want to interject two things so I have a big picture view, bird's eye view. Can you refresh my memory how many children you can serve, and are you at full capacity and full staff?
We're not at full capacity.
Right.
Our full capacity could be 83. We are at 42.
42 currently. If we had the staffing, we could be at full capacity. Staffing is difficult, as it is for everybody.
So you're as full as you can be
As
until you
full
get
as
more
we can
staffing?
be, yes.
And just to make it clear, can you let the commissioners know how many staff you need per children?
It depends on the age. So up to 12 months, it's 1 staff for every 4 babies. Once they are a year old to 24 months, it's 1 staff for every 5 children. 2-year-olds are 1 staff for every 6. Once they hit 3, it goes to 1 staff for every 10 children. It stays the same until they hit kindergarten, and then it's 1 to 12. So it really varies.
Okay,
It's a big numbers game
yeah.
for staffing.
Okay, I just wanted to find out where they stood with compliments, so I'm sorry, your turn.
Back to the Child Care Works situation, if a parent applies through Child Care Works, what percentage of your normal weekly rate would Child Care Works pay? Like, for example, if the weekly rate was $100 and the family qualifies for Child Care Works, do you receive, again, your full rate from Child Care Works and the copay of the parent?
It's based on the parent's income. So we do have some families who have a lower income and have a $0 copay. So Child Care Works would pay us the full amount. We also have children who have $40 copays. It's based on their income.
So again, under my example, if the weekly rate for the child was $100 and the family qualifies for the full discount or whatever it would be through Child Care Works is paying you the $100 and the family would pay you $0, hypothetically.
Yes.
Or some balance, you're going to receive your $100. It's just a question of
Yes.
in what percentage who's paying.
Yes.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about your total revenue? Is there any other revenue you generate that's not from the fees that are paid, either from the families or from Child Care Works?
Just before we answer that question, I just want to let the commissioners know we are prepared to address the 5 criteria. We don't believe we need to as a matter of law. So I would note an objection to this questioning, but we are prepared to address the criteria if need be.
Would you like that, Dave?
Yeah, if they could just answer the question for now, yeah.
Go ahead.
We receive no other monies unless we, meaning the staff, does a fundraiser, or if, like during COVID, there were grants from the state that came towards us. But other than that, it's 100% tuition.
Typically, grants are not given by the state. That was,
a COVID
yes, those were
relief thing to
extreme
help
circumstances.
retain
Yes.
our staffing is what we have received.
Do you have an annual appeal drive to your parents and the school district or anybody like that?
We don't have an annual drive. We do have, we try to put fundraisers out there. Parents are so strapped, especially with COVID, that it's hard. They already think, we're already paying for childcare, so
They're busy.
they're very busy.
Okay, no particular question?
Dave, did we miss any of the questions you need on the HUP test?
Nope, I don't have any other questions.
Okay. Dan? Ted? Then we'll go to the school district and ask
Thank you.
them if they
Thank
would
you
like to address.
for allowing me to speak on behalf of the Cornwall Lebanon School District. Commissioners, I would submit that the Cornwall Children's Center has to meet not only the HUP test, which was established based on the case back in 1985, which I have a copy if you so want it, which the Supreme Court said that you have to establish that it's a purely public charity under that Constitution, Pennsylvania Constitution, which includes advance a charitable purpose, donate or render gratuitously a substantial portions of its service, benefit a substantial or indefinite class of persons who are legitimate subjects of charity, relieve the government of some of its burden, and operate entirely free from profit and profit motive. Again, it also must meet the statutory requirements under the Purely Public Charity Act, which Attorney Race has described. And this was affirmed by Mitzvah, a case called Mitzvah versus Pike County Board of Appeals of Assessment, which specifically dealt with property taxes. And I do have a copy of that case here for your solicitor as well, or if you would like a copy. I don't think under the constitutional purely public charity, that burden is on Cornwall Children's Center to say that it meets the criteria established forth under the Pennsylvania Constitution, which I don't think that they can meet that burden. Only if they get through that litany of tests, then does it have to be evaluated under the Purely Public Charity Act, which again Attorney Race references section 376, which in that case then the burden would then shift to the political subdivision. And again, when we go back to the HUP test, one of the things is it has to relieve the government of some of its burden. And in fact, for the Cornwall Lebanon School District, it does not relieve them of a burden. It actually creates a burden for them because they provide transportation for those students to and from the child care center to both South Lebanon Elementary School and Cornwall Elementary School at a cost to them of about $20,000 a year.
I'm going to object to that cost, and unless they're going to provide some receipts or evidence, I'm going to object to that.
Again, it's a rough estimate. It is not relieving them of a burden. It's actually something that they've assumed that, although they don't have to do that, it's something that a service that they do provide. The other thing is, under the purely public charity, under the Pennsylvania Constitution.
Are you going to respond to his objection?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you were going to address that objection before we moved on or not.
Okay. Dave, what would you recommend on his objection?
Yeah, I mean, the board can assign weight certainly to any evidence presented to it today. It's not an evidentiary hearing or a hearing of record, so we'll take any testimony or argument or evidence presented. In the event there's an appeal, obviously, at the court of common pleas level, we will follow the formal rules of evidence and discovery.
The other thing, again, under the Pennsylvania Constitution, when we're looking at a purely public charity, is it must operate free from profit motive. And I don't think that they can reach that that burden, saying that they're operating free from profit motive, particularly when they're competing with other childcare facilities in the area. So again, the Cornwall Lebanon School District would ask that you oppose their relief under tax exemption. And again, I have copies of these cases.
Okay.
Andrew, I'm sure you have these.
I
but
do.
I'll give a copy of it to you anyway. So
Thank you.
that is-
While you're handing those out, I'd like to ask, if you were at full complement with 83 children, would you be making a profit?
Do you want more than?
No. It would still be the same, because we would still have to hire more staff and pay those staff to take care of those additional children.
And if I can respond, Commissioner Litz, with regard to the argument made by the school district, I'd like the chance just to briefly address the 5 criteria on rebuttal, and that includes the profit motive. So one thing I do want to pass up is the additional provisions from the governing documents for the Cornwall Children's Center. And this deals with the profit motive, and it clearly says no part of the assets or net earnings of the corporation shall ever be used for any other purpose other than 501c3 purposes, which is nonprofit purposes and charitable purposes. So I do want to pass that up, if I may. And turning back to the purely public charity, yes, we do need to meet the 5 criteria. However, under the Public Charity Act, with the presumption I spoke about, less than $10 million in operating revenue in the sales tax exemption, which I've already provided to you, that gives us the 5 requirements under Section 375 and shifts the burden to Cornwall Lebanon School District to prove that we don't meet that. So I want to address the after-school programs and the busing. Emily, if you can address some of the after-school help that Cornwall Children's Center provides for students of the Cornwall Lebanon School District.
So, for Cornwall Lebanon School District, we have children in our care that go to South Lebanon and Cornwall Elementary. There is a bus stop at our center. For one thing, SAC programs that are at the schools are completely full. They don't have the capability of taking any more children. We help with that. We take those children that the schools can't provide before and after school care for. In addition to that, there's one bus stop that comes for those children, as opposed to if they were at their homes, that bus would be making 12 or more different stops. So one stop and they're getting 12 children on that bus, or 12 stops at 12 different homes getting children on those buses, if that makes sense.
And I'd like to address the competition with other child care facilities. It's hard to make an argument that they're in competition with other facilities. UGRO in Lebanon has a waiting list of at least 6 months. My son goes there. Cornwall Children's Center is at half capacity. So it's hard to say you're competing with UGRO when they can't fill their spots and Cornwall Children has open spots. And there's a waiting list. But moreover, just real quick, jumping through the 5 criteria, in the event that you feel the Cornwall School District passed the rebuttable presumption, number 1, advancement of education. Emily, can you tell the commissioners briefly what Cornwall Children's Center does to advance education?
I had said a little bit before you got here, we do require that the staff, honestly DHS also requires of the staff that they take a minimum of 12 additional training hours per year. We follow creative curriculum guidelines to ensure that there's developmentally appropriate activities happening each day, ensure that the teachers are doing everything they can to advance the education of the children in our care.
Moving on to number 2, free of the private profit motive. I provided you language from the governing documents. And that specifically meets 2D. Is there a provision in the governing documents prohibiting the use of surplus funds, that is net revenue, for private benefit of any person? It's right there in the documents. It has to be used for a charitable purpose. The community service requirement. 3B2i, at least 20% of individuals receiving services pay no fee or a lower fee. 30% of their children are receiving government funding. So they're already in excess of the 20%. And, so it's clear that that the Cornwall Children's Center meets the criteria. There's no question the criteria are met. There's no question they're providing a public service. There's no question that the rebuttable presumption has not been overcome.
Okay, I didn't give you an opportunity to speak. Did you want to say anything?
I'm just going to allow our solicitor.
Did you have something else?
Yeah, I just want to make something clear with something that the Cornwall Children's Center just said with regards to transportation. The Cornwall Lebanon School District is required to provide transportation from the student from their home to the school and back. So the fact that she said there are 12 different bus stops, they have to provide that regardless. So what they're providing to the Cornwall Children's Center is above and beyond. And they make 3 runs a day. They make a run in the morning, they make a run at noontime to deal with the kindergartners, and then we also make a run in the afternoon. So they, again, they have to provide transportation to and from that child's home. So the service that they are providing is above and beyond what they have to provide by law. So I just want to make that clear.
And just in response, just from a public policy perspective, we're talking about a nonprofit, small organization benefiting children of the school district. Why are we not working together? From a public policy perspective, we're sitting here going after, with a school district going after a nonprofit that's taking kids after school.
Wait, your turn. Are you finished, Andrew?
I was just going to say, we should be working together to provide the services for these children at the most cost-effective manner, and adding to the cost of parents already struggling with COVID to raise rates to pay for a tax that we're clearly exempt from is just against any standard and reasonable public policy.
Again, I'm going to object. That's argumentative, and it's not in response to anything that I just presented in rebuttal.
Dave,
We're
I'm
really
not
following
an
rules
official
anyway,
judge
so you
here.
can object to that. I think we've heard the testimony.
Yeah, I think we have all the information.
All right. I think we've given everyone an opportunity to express themselves. If you have a closing statement, that would be fine. Otherwise, we will just close.
I think I've said everything I would say in the closing, so
Okay.
we'll rest.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much
Thank
for
you all.
joining us today.
Thank you for your patience for me. I do appreciate that.
You're welcome.